this thing with the lefty righty, like Amy taught me. Boom.
Let's see if it worked this time.
Look at my fingers. Hello! Why did I gotta yell? I'm excited. Okay. I love to put my face right in the camera.
Hello.
Hey everybody, so we're just setting up. We're gonna wait to hear from Amy Fairchild. Let me know that this is working on Facebook. I see Dorothy. It was fun thinking about how many friends I've made during lockdown. It's been great for my popularity. Turn off your ringer. Is Amy saying everything's working?
What?
Is Amy saying that things are working?
No.
Hey, Carmangelo. Hi, Carm. Carm. It's hot.
Yeah, much better.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just take a second here to let some people roll in, the late arrivers. And well, thank you for being here and for being here on time. We're feeling very officious here. I got a new shirt for my birthday. A little seersucker action going. You like it, Sophie?
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's cute, huh? So I missed that one. And we're doing okay. We got the AC going. We're gonna just the itinerary for tonight is some readings from. It's a quick conversation, maybe a longer conversation I have as part of my preamble. Then 2 food scenes from the Domino Effect, my first book, and the one I think will always be my first love. And then I'm gonna make a quick meal for you. I'm gonna show you how to make a Tuscan bean dish called fagiolini uccelletto, which means beans. And uccelletto's bird, but don't feel weird. It's just beans. It's a white bean dish. Sophie's very excited. It's gluten-free, kid. Soap's gluten-free this summer. Oh, Milo's calling you.
Oh no, that's not good.
What I won't be showing you how to make, but what I'll be making later for me and our family is this beautiful bistecca fiorentina. I'll get a. I'm gonna get out of here.
He's on the line. I gotta go. You gotta text me.
I will let's take a gander at it. I'll also share with you what we'll be drinking. If anyone wants to share what they're drinking, I'd love to know. I'm having the occasion of my birthday, or a day of the week that ends in Y, a martini. It's a giant martini. I think there's an undertow. Look out. This is why we're going to cut this off, because I think the after shows are not going to be pretty. I hope everyone's enjoying, some of the nicer weather we're having, and that you're doing okay. Here in New York, it's like super muggy, and then it starts raining sideways, like, for half an hour, and then it goes away. So even the weather is messed up. But we're doing okay. How are we looking here, Soph? Want to get started?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, let's start. So thank you for coming. It's been a while since we did one of these. The aperitivo hour, or the cucina cotto, as we call it. I stopped doing after, I think, 5 episodes. We did 3 for Cucina Tipica and 2 for Attleboro Blues. And I was thinking after a hiatus, it'd be nice to come back if we were still in lockdown, and do one from the Domino Effect, my first novel, which I'll talk about in a minute. Obviously, things have happened since the last time we were together in this forum, right? We thought things were bad before, which is pandemic. What can make it worse? And then we have national strife, and uprising, and it's incredible to watch, and it's hard to watch. We hope that things will change as a result of it, but the reality on the ground has certainly changed a lot since we last met, and I think it's worth addressing. One of the things I always talk to people about when I'm lecturing my classes is context, right? Context really matters, and trying to put this situation that we're in now into any sort of context is really hard. I do think back coincidentally to the summer that I was born, which was 1968. 52 years ago this summer, there was a lot of strife in America too. We were fighting the Vietnam War, which was becoming more and more unpopular and proven to be folly. We had strife in the streets, we had riots, we had assassinations. In the spring of that year, Dr. King was assassinated. In June of that year, Bobby Kennedy was assassinated right after winning the California primary for the Democratic nomination to be President of the United States, which he was going to be the president. Right? With his assassination, we ended up having Richard Nixon as the president. So it's interesting to weigh these times against times like that, but that's how far back we have to go to find times that are equally as complicated. On a personal level, things have gotten much more complicated for me. A couple weeks ago, my position as a college professor was terminated, so I lost my job, which was pretty jarring. And I'm sitting here trying to wrestle with that, but again, I must put it in context, right? I mean, lots of millions of other people have the same fate, and I feel pretty fortunate to be in the situation that I'm in, and we'll deal with it. I'm deeply disappointed. I love my job. I really love teaching, and was so happy where I was working. But I'm rolling it. As I've learned from people who offer me all sorts of advice since then. I guess when life gives you lemons, you were supposed to make lemonade. I didn't know that. Apparently also if one door closes, another one opens. So as a writer, cliches give me a rash, but I love the intention of all that support, and it was one of those moments where I really found out who my friends were, which was great. And I felt quite loved as a result, and proud of the job I had done, but I'm also ready to move on. You got to look at these things as an opportunity, and I'm going to pivot in a way I probably wouldn't have without this coming into my life, and make the most of it. One of the things I'm certainly going to spend the next weeks and months doing for sure is really focusing on my writing. I mean, I've been sort of a part-time writer, half teaching, half writing, and I'm going to go all in on the writing. And as someone who is loath to do too much self-promotion, I think I'm in a position now where I can be like, hey, if you guys are interested in some of my work, help my brother out. These books are good. They're interesting. They're about the cost of a bottle of wine, for goodness sake. And just as importantly, writers really need reviews. And I bring this up on occasion, and I don't want to belabor it, but the reviews on Amazon are how the machine works, right? That beast that is Amazon, which drives the overwhelming majority of sales of books, really depends on the amount of reviews that are there. So when people write reviews, they think that's just a single review, but when they add up, they get that logarithm rolling and whatever. So if you happen to have time, right, to put a review of one or two or all three of my books up on, I love it. I appreciate it immensely. I actually have some copies of Cucina Tipica and the Domino Effect for sale directly, signed ones, because I had events lined up for June that were canceled, obviously, and then I forgot to cancel the books, so the books just showed up, so I'm sitting here. There's nothing worse for a writer to look at a bunch of those unsold books. So if you're interested in a direct copy of the delivered, just DM me a message, and I'll arrange all the Venmo, etc., etc., etc. I'm also going to do, I have another book coming out. The sequel to Attleboro Blues is due this fall, called Black Irish Blues, and I'm almost done with a sequel to Cucina Tipica. It's called Cucina Romana. I'm about halfway done with that, and I hope to see it published in the spring. So I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do a lot more journalism too, and hopefully we'll be able to connect more with some of my writing. Okay. Thank you for all that. I appreciate all the support through these times, and I am anxious to be beyond this, but I'm also anxious to make the most of it. Is that too long, Soph?
Yes.
Right. Oh, speaking of Soph, and if all this, my new endeavor towards being a full-time writer doesn't really work out, I do have Sophia's college money to use. So
that's so true.
I thank you in advance for that, sweetie.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I mention your college funds, I'm going to drink. That's me, my drinking game.
You're just going to be stuck with me if I don't go to college. I don't think you want that.
You can't. You're my best friend around here. I want you here.
You're going to self-sabotage. You're going to sabotage me on purpose.
So I'm going to be like your homeschool teacher.
You lose your job as a ploy.
I'm your homeschool professor. Okay. The Domino Effect. Oh, so if you weren't here earlier, I'm going to read 2 food scenes from this book, talk a little bit about it. I'm talking too fast. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and then I'm going to show you how to make a really wonderful Tuscan bean dish, and then I'm going to cook our dinner, which is the bistecca fiorentina, accompanied by Chianti Classico Riserva. The book, The Domino Effect. This book changed my life. Some might say for worse, some might say for better. I certainly say for better. I quit my job in my early 30s because I wanted to write this book. We moved to Italy and lived in the hills south of Florence, where I wrote it. Came back, thought it was going to take off. It was looking very promising. Ended up having a smaller release than I expected, but it was still well received. And then last year, the publisher I'm currently working with, Black Rose Writing, republished it, gave it rebirth. I was really excited about that because some of the things that were covered in the book, when the book came out, young adult fiction, coming of age novels are all dystopian, stories, with heroines who are shooting arrows and whatnot, and, or Harry Potter was really big. So the fantasy-ish type writing was very popular amongst young adults. This is more realistic fiction, more along the lines of, say, someone like John Green. And I always thought that the book was fantastic. The main character is a really charismatic kid from Queens named Danny Roro, who runs into trouble in his neighborhood. Neighborhood is an Italian-American enclave that is transitioning towards a more Hispanic population. And if you ever witness those situations in real life, they're often not pretty. The resistance to change amongst people really can bring out the worst in them. Danny's father, who's sort of the moral hero of the story, who was advocating all along, speaking of Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, he was touting the practices that they preached throughout Danny's life, right? Look out for other people, do the right thing, consider other people's situations, right? And trying to bring people together as opposed to breaking them apart. Danny tries to do that in the neighborhood with the new kids coming in of Hispanic descent and the old school Italian kids, and it ends up in disaster for him. He ends up being brutalized over it and then hospitalized. They have to move out of their neighborhood, and they end up in a safer neighborhood in Queens, where Danny and his father did become adversaries. Right? Danny blames his father, and for following his practices for all the interruption of his adolescence. So those two are just incompatible. So Danny ends up being sent off to boarding school. It's at boarding school in New Jersey where the rest of the story takes place. There at the boarding school, where he assumes things will be much easier, the challenges abound as well. Some of the themes that are explored at the boarding school are sexual assault. There is a Brett Kavanaugh type character, 10 years before I ever heard of his name, but that privileged rich kid who thinks he can do whatever he wants without consequence, and he ends up sexually assaulting Danny's love interest. So that plays out. There's also a very dominant theme of race. Danny's roommate is African American from Houston named Terrence, who's on his way to Brown for academic reasons and athletic ones as well. And he doesn't want to be at boarding school. He wants to be back in Houston for his last year of high school with his friends. He wants to go to a traditional black college like many of his friends are doing. He doesn't want to be in the Northeast and going to an Ivy League school. And that creates a bit of tension around him, and that manifests in ways that explore race. There's a pretty prominent conversation between Danny and his father where he's telling his dad on the phone about this kid, his new roommate, right, who's from Texas, who speaks French or Creole, who's a brilliant straight-A student and a star athlete, and what's his problem? And the father says to him, hey, he may have a lot going for him, but the fact that he's an African American in that particular environment is particularly, makes challenges for him that you can't imagine. Right? His experiences are going to be different. You need to appreciate that, and that sort of lends Danny towards the resolution to this situation. The book is fun. It's also funny. The narrative voice is quite compelling, I believe. It's told from the first-person point of view of Danny. In retrospect, I think of it kind of like Catcher in the Rye meets A Bronx Tale. It's been compared to Kill a Mockingbird with the incontrovertible morality that goes throughout it. I think it's a really fun book. I've Skyped into classrooms across the country to talk to middle schools about it. If you know educators or librarians who are interested in reading it, I'd be happy to get them a copy, and I'm happy to visit via Skype or in person. I'm good in person, and I'm good on Skype. Of course, all that said, the book has food. Right? They're Italian Americans, right? And I'm going to read you two scenes from the book where food plays a prominent role. One where Danny's with his love interest, the fabulous Brenda Devine, and then one where him and his father are sort of on the verge of reconciling when Danny's home for a break, and food plays an important role in both of those scenes. Sophia's college money.
What?
Drink.
Huh?
I wanted to drink.
Oh.
Salute. Oh, and happy birthday to me, right?
Getting a lot of birthday messages.
Oh, good.
They all love you.
Oh, good.
Or their fate.
I'll take it either way.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Danny and Brenda Devine. I'll set this up real quickly, right? This is the girl that Danny's been at this school for 2 years, right? This is his senior year now. He was in love with her his entire junior year. His senior year, they finally get together. They are meeting during a break. It's Thanksgiving break. He's home in Queens. She's up in Connecticut, and they're meeting in Grand Central. And it was one of them to spend the day in the city. It's a really funny sort of dated scene where Danny has to call her up to make the plans, and he has to call her up, and her dad answers the phone. Like, you don't remember this if you're young. We remember this, right? You're calling a girl up or calling a boy up or someone, and their parent answers the phone. Like, hello, is so and so home? Like, who's this? Right? It's really kind of a funny scene, I think. Let's do it. So they meet in Grand Central, and they walk around the city. We crossed Houston Street into Soho, with its boutiques, galleries, and cafes, and its throngs of people hogging the sidewalks. We escaped over Lafayette Street into the tip of Little Italy. The streets hum with both curious tourists and neighborhood people going about their business. In the windows above almost every shop, a Nona kept a watchful eye on the doings below. On Mulberry Street, restaurant bosses fished for tourists, but we didn't stop until a voice rang out, "Domino!" I looked around. Across the street was a little guy beneath a big ristorante sign, his hands waving at his sides. "Domino, that you? Get over here." The guy with the big mouth beamed as we approached, his hand still out to his side. "How you doing there?" he asked as he leaned over to kiss me with thick lips on both cheeks. Great, Ronnie, I said after the sloppy kiss. "How about you?" "Can't complain," he said. "I have my health." "Glad to hear it," I said. "Glad to hear it." "How are your folks?" he asked. "And the holiday? What about school?" "Everything's fine," I said. "Everything's fine." A Hispanic guy brushed past with a crate of artichokes. "This your place?" I asked. "Nah, somebody else's," he said with a shrug. "I run the joint for him, though." "The food's good?" I asked. "Of course," he said, flailing his arms. "Come on in." I started to lead Brenda inside. Wait a minute, Ronnie caught himself. "Who's this?" "This is my girlfriend, Brenda," I said. "Excuse me, doll," he said, putting the reading glasses high up on his forehead. "I didn't even see you there." "Oh, that's okay," she smiled and stuck out her hand. "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too," he said, taking her hand. Then he grabbed my face and kissed me all over again, on both cheeks. Then he held open the door. The open space was full of light. The ceiling, high and made of tin, had a fan that turned in the middle. The walls were worn white brick. "Have a seat right here," Ronnie said, offering us a 4-spot in the middle of the room. "I'll be right with you." "How do you know him?" Brenda asked. She was all eyes and smile. I told her about the restaurant Ronnie used to have in the old neighborhood in Queens, and how we used to eat there all the time. "What happened to it?" she asked. "It closed down." "No," she said, frowning. "Why?" I loved Brenda. She can care about someone she just met a minute ago. I shrugged as Ronnie approached with a pen and a pad, glasses back down. "So what can I get you?" "Menus would be nice," I said with a wink. "Ah, Domino," he laughed, trying to bust some capillaries on my cheek with a pinch. "So much like your father." He was tough on the cheeks, that guy, Ronnie. "I'm just joking, Ronnie," I said, rubbing my face. "What's good here?" "Everything," he shouted. "We got some of the best Latin cooks in all Little Italy." Brenda and I laughed. It's true, he insisted. "I'm the only Italian in the whole joint." "But the food's good, right?" "It's fantastic," he declared. "I arranged for all the food. I got beef coming in from Montana. You believe that? Montana. All these other guys around here are serving Jersey cows." "Good thing," I said, because Brenda won't even look at a cow from Jersey. She kicked me under the table. "What?" Ronnie asked. "Nothing," I said. "Nothing. I'm just kidding around." Oh, he said. "I thought maybe we had one of them veterinarians on our hands." I opened my mouth, but Brenda kicked it closed with another shot to the shin. No. We're good on anything, Ronnie," I said politely. "What do you like?" "Tell you what, just sit tight," he said. "I'll take care of you. How's that?" Brenda and I consulted without words and smiled back at Ronnie. Good, he said. "I'll get you started with some vino." We drank Chianti and shared a platter of olives, breadsticks, and prosciutto. The red wine was good, kind of fruity, and we sipped it as we ate our way through a plate of clams casino that was thick with garlic and lemon and crumbs. We wiped our plates with warm bread. After washing down a bowl of bolognese with more wine, Brenda was unable to hide the smile that kept turning up her wine-stained lips. "What?" I asked, putting my glass down on the table. "What is it?" "Excuse me?" she asked, trying to appear innocent. Come on, Bren, I can see the wheels turning over there. I'm just having fun, she said, shifting her eyes toward the window. She watched the locals and tourists walk by, but her smile kept coming back. Still just having fun, I asked. Sure am, she said, then added after a slight pause, Domino. Oh, I moaned. Thought you might have missed that. No chance, she said. I sipped some wine. So, she asked, with her eyebrows up, what's it all about, Domino? Oh, Marron, I mumbled. I don't know. Come on, Danny, she said, putting her hand on mine. You never talk about your home or your family, and I feel like I'm getting a chance to know you better, that's all. I don't know much about your family either, Bren. It's true, we never talked much about our separate lives. We knew simple things, of course, but I didn't dig because to me, her past was full of boyfriends I didn't want to know about. I didn't want to know about her, and I didn't want her to know about my history either. So we were still sort of strangers in a way. Not for long, though, thanks to Mr. Face Molester and his cries of, Domino! You're right, she said. You don't know much about my family, but we're here now with a friend of yours who calls you by a secret name and says you're just like your father. She sat back and smirked. You had too much to drink, right? I asked. Stop trying to change the subject, she said. Okay, Bren, I pretended to be had. My father's name is Dominic, and people think I take after him. And in Italian, ino is added to the end of a word to mean little, like uccello is bird, and uccellino is little bird. So they used to call me Little Dom, or Domino. That's so cute, she smiled. You look alike, that's it? Maybe we're both funny sometimes too, I don't know. Oh, she said. I thought maybe there was more to it than that. What can I tell you, I said. Now how about a little more wine? We continued our slow lunch, dripping honey over gorgonzola until we couldn't eat another bite. I motioned to Ronnie, but instead of bringing the check, he showed up with a hunk of meat from Montana, big enough to feed the whole state. Bistecca per tre, he said, placing the gigantic platter on the table. You guys don't mind if I join you, do you? No, of course not, Ronnie, I said. Of course not. Good. You want some roasted potatoes with this, he asked, squeezing lemon wedges all over the carved steak. I don't know, I said. We already had a lot. I leaned back and patted my stomach. You're right, he agreed. We'll have beans. Ronnie stormed the kitchen and returned with some white beans and tomato sauce and another bottle of wine. He filled our glasses and plates and helped himself to a heaping portion. Brenda and I picked at our food while Ronnie cut and stabbed and chewed like a madman. So, Brenda said it to Ronnie after most of the steak, half the beans, and all the wine had been devoured. Danny and his father look alike? Those two? He laughed while I cringed. Fortunately for this guy, he resembles his mother. Really? Brenda asked, with her eyes on mine. How so? Hey, don't get me wrong. His father's the greatest, Ronnie said, still chomping away on his food. But he's a short guy like me, and normal looking, I guess. But this guy's mother is tall and skinny like him, and what a looker, that one. My face prickled as my intestines twisted. You know, Ronnie continued, around the neighborhood, people called her the Italian Audrey Hepburn. Breakfast at Anthony's, I mumbled. It was the joke our family always made about that comparison. They don't call her that anymore? Brenda asked. They might, Ronnie said, tossing a napkin over his bloody plate, if they were still around. Well, where are they? She asked. Have him tell you, Ronnie said. Now, who wants coffee or something sweet? Just a coffee for me, Ronnie, I begged. How about you, doll? Something sweet, Brenda said. Atta girl, Ronnie hummed and was off for the back. What's he talking about? Brenda leaned forward and whispered. Is that why he doesn't have a restaurant anymore? It's a long story, I said. It's a long story. Why are you being so secretive, Danny? I'm not. Yes, you are, she insisted, and it's so annoying. I want to know what he's talking about your name and the neighborhood, and don't get clever. She was demanding and nervous. I'm just trying to save you from a boring story, Brent. Ronnie arrived with a tray full of coffees, liqueurs, and dessert. Allora, he said, sitting down, what'd I miss? Nothing, I said, splashing some sambuca into my Demetes cup. Ronnie, Brenda said, sitting up straight, her spoon stuck into a pale green mountain of pistachio gelato. Domino here doesn't seem to be in the storytelling mood, and I'm curious about what happened to all the people. We left, he said. But why? Because the Spicks came into our neighborhood and took the place over. He said it matter of fact, like he wasn't the only Italian in the whole joint. I downed the espresso and asked for the check. "Sure thing, kid," he said, getting up. "I know it's late." We didn't speak until Ronnie returned. No, 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 I insisted to Brenda as she reached for her black shoulder bag. "That's right, doll," Ronnie said. "Yours was free, and his was heavily discounted." He gave me a folded up piece of paper. I forked over the measly sum and thanked him for the meal. "Hey, it was my pleasure," he said, and patted the back of my head. "Tell your folks I was asking for them, and don't be a stranger, all right?" "I won't," I said, helping Brenda with her coat. "Thanks, Ronnie," Brenda said. "Anytime, doll." He gave her a kiss on both cheeks. "Take care of yourself." We walked outside, but the cool air was little relief to the sickness that filled me. I had lied to Brenda about my name and got caught, which was bad enough, but she also got a taste of what had happened back home, which scarred my head and convinced me to change my name in the first place. Wrenched by all these awful emotions and memories, I walked up Mulberry Street, steady as I could, for as long as I could. Then I ducked into an alley and tossed a heavily discounted lunch behind a dumpster. Ew. So?
Ew.
Thank you. So that's when Brenda first discovers the things about Danny's past, the things that drove him out of his neighborhood and into Blair Academy, and as we're obviously aware of the context here, that it is racism, right? It's that resistance to people who are others. It's xenophobia. It's a big part of the book. As is food, and there's another. And this is also very much a father-son story. The character of Danny's father is the book's hero. He is the moral guiding light of it. He is inspired mostly by my own father, who was a very moral figure, who talked incessantly about my childhood about right and wrong and people being people, and that's sort of a theme to this book. He's also the character, a lot of the swing that the character exhibits of Danny's father, which we'll see in a minute, was also inspired by my beloved Uncle Matt. He is the father of my cousins Nancy Jean and Thomas, and just one of the most special people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. So I was able to sort of thread two of my favorite adults into this one character. And it's time for me to have a sip. It's my birthday, y'all.
Whoop whoop. Party in his ass.
I was mopping.
Oh.
People don't mop anymore.
No, I'm not.
So Danny's home for Christmas, right? And his father and him are reconciling slowly, and his father is insisting that Danny goes with him the day before Christmas Eve to do all the shopping they need to do for their feast of 7 fishes on Christmas Eve. Right? If everybody knows that tradition, right? So they go do the shopping, right? And the idea is that this is what we used to do all our lives. We go back and we still do it because traditions are what we abide by. After they get done, they stop at this groceria to pick up. It was right across the street from their old house, right where Danny worked. I find this to be a really important food scene because the food descriptions are, of course, decadent and pleasurable and sensory inducing, but also it shows the role that food plays in this slow reconciliation between the father and son. People from all 5 boroughs came to Vito's Latticini for sandwiches, homemade cheeses, sausages, you name it. Cured meats hung from the ceiling, and the shelves were lined with fresh pasta and sauces and imports from Italy. Through the glass and back, you could see the guy making the cheese, stirring the steaming tub with a wooden paddle. The salty smell filled me with sweet memories. I had lived across the street all my life and worked there on and off since the 4th grade. The Mozzarella Sisters, as Pop named them long ago, came from behind the counter to greet us with kisses and hugs and questions, always questions about how well we've been eating and behaving. I hadn't seen them in years, and they went crazy over how much I'd grown, how handsome I'd become. With flour-dusted hands, they tugged and stabbed and barked at me, like Italian ladies do, tough like that, but always with a ton of heart. I missed the sisters. I missed my job and the smell of their shop. After they got done with me, they moaned a little about the changing of the neighborhood, but to tell the truth, they didn't seem all that much worse for wear. They brought us some just-made mozzarella, which Pop asked them to put on top of the roast pork sandwiches he'd ordered. We took our bags, said our goodbyes, and rode home in silence on the bus. Back at the house, the cod was left to soak, and the 6 other types of fish were all stored proper, before we spilled our bulging Vito's bag on the kitchen table and got to work. Oh man, the taste of that roasted pork, cut thin and slathered with gravy and mushrooms over the mozzarella, I felt like rubbing it on my chest. You got all your college applications in? Pop asked after a few sloppy bites. Yep, I answered from a full mouth. I'd gone to the guidance counselor after Thanksgiving. We talked about my grades and extracurricular activity, my other interests and whatnot, and I left there with a handful of college applications. Tell me the schools again, Pop asked. I went down the list for the umpteenth time since he'd cut the application checks. How come I didn't hear St. John's on that list, he said. I'm not going to St. John's, Pop, I said. Why not? It's a good school, and it's right here near home. I went there, your mother went there, for 2 degrees no less. They owe us. Hey, Pop, I said, I didn't have a bad time today, but that doesn't mean I want to be around here again. You want to go back to school next week? He asked. Yeah, I choked. Then do yourself a favor and send off an application to St. John's. Whatever, I said, dropping my sandwich to the plate. I'll tell you another thing, he said, wiping his hands. I don't care where you get in. I'm not sending you away again unless I think you're ready to go. What? I asked, my head starting to spin. You heard me, he said, taking a bite of the sandwich. You can't do that. Who are you talking to with that tone, he asked, chewing slowly. I cursed under my breath. Pop swallowed his food. Ascolta me, he told me to listen in Italian, tugging on my earlobe until I jerked away. I lost the argument with your mother about sending you to sleep away at this private school, and the results on that aren't in yet. But come the end of this year, if I don't think you're ready to be away from home again, at college of all places, you're not going. Simple as that. What will I do? I asked. You can do lots of things, he shrugged. Go to St. John's, another school around here. Get a job. There's lots you can do. This is America. Come on, Pop, I begged. You can't do that. With his elbows on the table, he laced his thick fingers. I don't know what they're telling you over at that school, but going away to college is a privilege, okay? In fact, going to college at all is a privilege. I had to do time in the service in order to go, and your mother had to wait till she was a grown woman. So if you think you're going just because your parents can afford it and some school says they'll take you, you're way off the mark. My drowning dreams and burning insides forced me to make a face. Make that face if you want, Pop said, but you have to earn the right to go to college. And I don't care what the other kids are doing. That's between them and their parents. What happens with you is between you and me and your mother. Another face wasn't going to help me any, so I put my head on the table. Hey, he said, taking my chin in his powerful grip. I believe in you, Danny. You're a great kid. And I know you had some tough times, but you gotta get over them or their memories are gonna eat you up. Capito? I slowly removed his hands from my face. Though I had to admit it felt good there. I sat back and frowned. You're doing all right, pal, he said, nodding. Just keep it up. How do you know how I'm doing, I asked. It's my job to know these things, he said with a wink. Now help me with this food. After some silence around the table, I asked Pop if he thought I was a decent enough human being to go away for one night to Connecticut to visit Brenda. He laughed and said I was. We finished our sandwiches together like we had 100 times before, and I couldn't help thinking back to when Pop was my hero. All right. I like that scene. He wants to rub the sandwich on his chest. So I won't give away the plot, but you know, all the loose ends tie up at the end of the story, all the loose threads, I should say, and you know, it's an uplifting story. You know, it's full of humor and heart, and there's things about it to conjure conversation, but it's also full of hope. I mean, I think the idea is that you know, behind stories like this, which I love, you know, is where people go through things and they come out of them on the other side better than they were before. And I think the coming of age genre is probably the best, you know, opportunity to do such, and that's why I was so inspired to write this story, and why I was reading it for you tonight. Hope you enjoyed. Now let's eat. Okay, so food being a consistent narrative in my work and my life, I'm going to move the cameras over towards the kitchen and show you a really easy, healthy dish, right? You know, obviously this is being paired with some steak. Hi, so. College fun. It's being paired with steak. So, you you don't eat meat, this is not going to work for you, so that's why I'm not making the steak. But everyone eats these vegetables. Right? I love steak frites, right? Steak and potatoes, classic combination. But steak and beans work so well because the beans aren't heavy like potatoes, right? And they're full of flavor that complement the meat. The meat just tastes like meat, right? I don't put sauces on my meat. Right? I just salt and pepper and I cook them. A little rosemary, and that's it. So having something on the side that provides a different flavor component. It's a little bit more complex without being overwhelming to your stomach, etc. is a great thing to do. So we're going to move over here. We're going to use these books that are for sale.
Got him. Shameless self-promo. Am I moving both cameras?
Yeah. Yes. Good.
I'm going to do that.
Alright, so.
Hey, Instagram. Hey, Facebook.
Oh, you're not making a kiss.
No. Okay. Here's Facebook. Sorry. No.
How's our angle on the food? Can we see the stove?
Perfect.
Cool. All right,
Let's
so.
see my skateboards.
Turn it on. Okay. Fagioli, which is beans in Italian. These are white beans. Cannellini beans, we call them in the States, right? You're not seeing my face up here, right? Cannellini beans, which are, I eat cannellini beans probably twice a week. Either paired as a side or as a main dish. These beans here came from a can, right? For some reason, somebody is bogarting all the white beans, all the hard, uncooked white beans and broccoli. I can't find them in the bags anywhere to resuscitate and cook. So I'm buying them in jars, which I prefer, or even cans if I find the organic ones. What you want to do if you get white beans in a can is definitely rinse them off, right? I'm not a chemist. I don't know what's going on with beans in a can or beans in general in our bodies, right? But there's something about rinsing them very thoroughly will help you with digestion. They have that thick outer shell to them, that can be a little bit hard to digest. So if you rinse them, you'll get a lot of that enzyme off that's sort of developing there. When I'm doing that, the enzyme, and they are just delicious. They're toothy. They are in the Domino Effect. They're in Cucina Tipica. I need to read a bean book. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make them. Obviously, my burner's on. Right? I have my olive oil. I have besides salt and pepper, I have 4 ingredients. Well, if you count olive oil as an ingredient, it'd be 5. I'm swirling my good olive oil, not my great olive oil, right? When you're heating it up, you don't want to be using your really good stuff. In the pan, right? I have a little, all-clad burner here. I have my garlic. I use a lot of garlic, right? Not like everyone would gossip, like bam, tons of garlic. Oh, I just, if you cook garlic properly, you can use it really well. So I'm not like, no one's gonna say, oh my God, there's so much garlic, or it's like one of those garlic Johnny restaurants, whatever. But I do use, this is 2 big cloves that I minced in salt. One of the cardinal sins of cooking is burning your garlic, so you want to be really careful. I like to get it on the heat and then take it off the heat and let it just sort of absorb into the oil while being off the heat and swirling it. Right? Burnt garlic is over. You got to start from scratch, right? You burn your garlic, just give it up and start again, right? So I don't want to burn my garlic here. My heat's about medium, right? I salted it. I'm going to pepper it. I normally use red pepper flakes, but for this dish, black pepper and tomato, which we're going to see in a minute. I love that combination of black pepper and tomato, so I use black pepper for this. I've got my garlic on there. It's minced fine. It's been salted. It's ready to just sort of mellow, right, as opposed to burn. While it's mellowing, I will mellow as well. I'll also tell you about our wine tonight. This is a Chianti Classico. I said Reserva before. It's not a Reserva. It's just a Chianti Classico, right? It's from Fontodi, right? A little producer right outside the village of Panzano in Chianti. Chianti Classico are the best Chianti wines. They're Chianti Classico. They have a black rooster as part of their emblem. They are by far the best wines of Chianti. All Chianti wines are good. Don't get me wrong. But the Chianti Classico is the best, and you look for the black rooster as the emblem of that, okay? That's our drink. If you can find a Chianti Classico, they're probably around $20, $25 a piece. This one's a little bit more. And a Reserva is going to run up, up in the, the $40, $50 range. But if you're looking for a really good special occasion bottle of wine, it's not a Brunello Montalcino. I'm going to throw in these beans before the garlic burns. So I have 2 cans of white beans, cannellini beans that I soaked thoroughly and dry. Now they're in the pan, right? You can probably hear that. Yeah, they are meeting the garlic. The flavors are melding, right? Back on the heat, right? And let these cook a little bit. What I like to do to sort of foster the melding of flavors is add a little chicken broth. Okay? If you're a vegetarian, you do this veggie, which is a great vegetarian dish. You do vegetable broth, right? Some might say water. I would definitely do vegetable broth.
You want to see the pan?
You want to see the pan? What's in the pan?
Yeah.
White beans. Good?
I think so. I can't. It's delayed, so I can't see.
Again, not again. I would say people are probably saying like, well, how much bean is that? How much chicken broth is that? I don't measure, and that's probably why I can't ever write a cookbook, because I don't do the measuring thing. I cook from instinct and from experience, but I would encourage you to pay attention to how much you do add, don't add, etc. How many cloves of this or sprinkles of that until you get it right, and then it becomes generative. You just know. I could do this with my eyes closed, but I probably can't tell you how much exactly it was. But that was probably, if I was going to tell you, I bet that was probably half a cup of broth. Okay, 2 cans of beans, 2 cloves of garlic. I lied. It was like 4 cloves of garlic. I'm sorry. I didn't want to burst you out. I would do 2 cloves of garlic. Salt and pepper to taste, of course. And this is cooking on the grill. This is cooking on the stovetop, I should say. I'm looking for just that what Jacques Pepin called that smile, right? It's a simmer. It's just a little bubble of the liquid, right? Not too much. It's not boiling. It's simmering. It's smiling. Right? And these got to cook through. These beans are already cooked, right? If I was doing this with the fresh beans, which I wish I would have preferred, I'd have this on the stove an hour ago. Right? It would cook for that long. So that's one of the really good things about these canned beans. I use canned or jarred lentils, chickpeas, red beans, etc., because they're just ready to go, and they're so good for you. They're easy to make. They're healthy, and they fill meals out in a great way and avoiding any crap you might put on the side. Right? I can hear that this is cooking a little bit too hard. Right? Okay, so I got these beans in here. They're looking good, and it smells good. I wish I could somehow do the little smellogram thing. I think so. It's asleep. Oh, hi. They smell great, and that's one of the things I love about cooking is just the experience of doing it and all the different ways it is appealing. I'm loving the way this looks. Right? Of course, the smell of it is driving me crazy, and the anticipation of what we're going to be enjoying soon is also making me very happy right now. Allow me to show this to you again. If I haven't, I'm going to use my hands here because I'll be doing cooking this. But this is a steak, right? This is our dinner. This is a bistecca fiorentina, right? It's a porterhouse, right? It is, a filet mignon and a New York strip, right? I like this side better, the New York strip side. But it's classic Tuscan steak. Right? The bistecca fiorentina, which they grill real hard on both sides, right? And then let rest. And some people want it raw on the inside, right? If you went to the restaurant on my buddy Darren Zucchini in Tuscany, you would get a super seared steak on the outside, and it would be raw on the inside. I like it medium rare. I think there's more flavor in that. And it's just fabulous. And we're going to, I'm going to add now some tomatoes. I have some cherry tomatoes, right, that I split and seeded. I almost lost a few right there. I'm going to add them in with this. Beautiful color that they provide, right? It's a big part of cooking is the colors that you can conjure, right? And these colors here are just fabulous. So it's white beans, bright red tomatoes. I'm going to hit it with a bunch of herbs. Right, when we finish, and some fresh olive oil, and it'll be good to go. While we're sitting here, and almost done. Right? I promised a 6:45 and time is over.
6:46.
Okay, we're almost done. These are Sophia's artwork, right? Sophia does her original art.
Can I come in?
On skateboard frames. This is a skateboard, right? Minus the trucks and the wheels and all that stuff, right? I love these. I think she has really beautiful portrayals of mostly women's bodies, right? I have one in my office. It's like almost like a Basquiat, you know, and I'm really proud of her. And she's not going to pursue art for a career, I'm certain, right?
Don't worry.
This is the other one.
I want to make money too.
She has a bunch. You're probably going to sell these. It's like, I sold no books. You sold skateboards.
I've already had offers. I'm
really?
making one later for someone to buy.
Oh, good. From this tonight?
Yeah, later tonight.
Cool. Look, these are really cool. So very talented.
The colors faded on this one because I left it outside in the rain.
Let me see more real, man. All right. We're almost done here, folks. I'm hungry. I need to turn my grill on. But we've got the beans with the tomatoes in them, okay? I'm going to hit them with a bunch of herbs. I have some fresh thyme and some dried Italian herbs. Ideally, sage is the perfect herb for this. I just didn't have any sage, and I went to the place down the street, and there's only so many stores I can walk into each day without like losing my shit. So I was like, you know what? You don't have sage at this place, I'm not going anywhere else. So I'm going to use some dry herbs and some thyme we have growing in our back. And how much is it? Tablespoon. How's that? I'm tossing. I'm tossing. Ooh, I smell the herbs. Activating. I put too much in. Actually, no, it's okay. And then before we finish, I'm going to hit it with some really good oil. Now, you want to have two oils. You want to have like a good olive oil, and always extra virgin. Don't even, right? But you know, house oil. Then you want to have a really expensive oil. You know, like a $25, $30 bottle that will last you half the year. You just use to anoint at the end. You just swirl at the end that you eat fresh, right? You cook in this oil, right? Saute, etc., right? Sear, whatnot, but you anoint in the good oil, right? And you will know when you are able to differentiate, you know, the good oil from the cooking oil, right? You're with me, right? I'm gonna plate this. Anoint, and then say goodbye. Can we see it?
Don't forget about your Instagram.
I'm not forgetting Insta.
Don't neglect.
Insta, what's up?
Terrible with my phone.
Okay. I just bought that phone. I wish you were all here. I mean, if I could, you know, click my heels 3 times. I was clicking my heels 3 times.
It looks like you're going because you can't see your heels. They're just going like this.
Oh, sorry. If I could like make this, you know, all of you appear right in my house in our lovely dining room to join us for this birthday meal, I would in a second. But I thank you for joining us in this forum. I wish you well. I mean, I might plan another reading later in the summer. We'll see how it goes, but I'm so grateful for you're taking the time out tonight for your birthday wishes, for your support through all these times, for your friendship, and for being here tonight. One quick last note before I go. At 8 o'clock tonight, my cousin Thomas Giuliano and his wonderful girlfriend Amy Fairchild are playing at her Facebook and Insta page, Amy Fairchild. They are incredible musicians. She's a singer-songwriter. Thomas is an amazing guitar player, and they're really doing wonderful work. And it's so entertaining and just something that I'm looking forward to tonight. After I finish my dinner, I'll be in certainly a good mood. Soph and I are going to say goodnight. Wish you all well, and take care of yourself.
Right.
All right.
Peace out, Girl Scouts.
Peace out, Girl Scouts.
And you got oil on my phone.